For more than 25 years, the courtroom of Judge Judy Scheindlin had seen it all: betrayals between spouses, disputes between landlords and tenants, and every form of dishonesty imaginable. Yet in all that time, there was one thing no one had ever witnessed. Not once had Judge Judy shed a tear. Her reputation was built on unshakable composure, razor-sharp questioning, and an unwavering refusal to show vulnerability. That changed the morning James Mitchell stepped into her courtroom, a folded letter tucked carefully inside the pocket of his worn military jacket. James stood at the defendant's podium, his hands gripping the rail as a faint tremor ran through them. At 67, he looked far older than his years. His face carried the weight of hardship, deep lines etched by sleepless nights and quiet grief. His faded army jacket hung loosely on his frame, its patches nearly worn away, but the Purple Heart pinned to his collar still caught the light. Across from him sat Patricia Brennan, 52, composed and confident in an expensive designer suit. She had filed suit against him, demanding $8,500 for unpaid rent, alleged property damage, lease violations, and his refusal to vacate her apartment after eviction. Her leather briefcase lay open, filled with neatly organized documents, photos of damaged walls, official reports, witness statements. On the surface, her case seemed airtight. It painted James as nothing more than another irresponsible tenant who had destroyed property and refused to pay. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses and reviewed the file. Brennan versus Mitchell. Unpaid rent, $6,200. Property damage, $4,200. Lease violations spanning nearly a year. She looked up at James. He stood rigidly, eyes lowered, posture still carrying the discipline of military service, despite everything life had taken from him. Judge Judy had evaluated thousands of defendants in her career, and her instincts rarely failed her. Something here didn't feel right. Patricia spoke first, her tone crisp and detached. She described James as a problematic tenant, initially compliant, but soon the subject of complaints. Noise disturbances, damage to walls and fixtures, repeated violations. She claimed she had attempted to work with him, but ultimately had no choice but to evict him after he refused to comply or pay. She presented photographs. A small apartment in disarray, holes punched through drywall, a shattered sink, damaged door frames. Judge Judy examined them closely before turning to James. "Mr. Mitchell," she asked, "what do you have to say?" James slowly raised his head. His eyes were tired, rimmed with red. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, with deliberate care, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, worn soft from repeated handling. "Your Honor," he said quietly, his voice trembling, "this is from my daughter. She wrote it before she passed." A subtle shift crossed Judge Judy's face as she took the letter. The courtroom fell silent as she unfolded it. Her eyes scanned the opening lines, and something changed. The sharp intensity that usually defined her softened. She read the words again, slower this time. The silence grew heavy. Even Bailiff Byrd sensed it. Stepping slightly closer, Patricia shifted in her seat, her earlier confidence beginning to falter. Judge Judy placed the letter on her desk, but kept her hand resting on it. "Mrs. Brennan," she said quietly, "this letter was written by Mr. Mitchell's daughter, Sarah. She was an Army medic who served 2 tours overseas. According to this letter, she also lived in your apartment complex." She paused, her gaze steady. "And she fell behind on rent while dying of cancer. You evicted her 2 months before her death." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Patricia stiffened. "Your Honor, I don't see how a personal letter is relevant." "Oh, it's relevant," Judge Judy interrupted, her voice tightening with controlled anger. "Because it reveals a pattern, and I had my team review your business practices last night." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Patricia had entered expecting a routine victory. She had no idea that the letter in Judge Judy's hand was about to unravel everything. Judge Judy began questioning her about her apartment complex. Patriot Gardens. Veteran-focused housing, she confirmed. American flags displayed prominently. Advertisements targeting military families. A noble mission. On the surface, But then came the numbers. How many veteran tenants have you evicted in the past 3 years? Patricia hesitated. Maybe 10 or 12. Judge Judy opened a file. Court records show 23. The room stirred. Then came the pattern, every eviction occurring between 8 and 11 months into tenancy. Every case involving inflated damage claims. Every tenant sent to collections. Patricia attempted to justify it, citing tenant behavior and property damage. Judge Judy wasn't convinced. She turned back to Sarah's letter. Sarah Mitchell had been battling stage 4 cancer while living in Patricia's complex. When medical bills overwhelmed her, she fell behind on rent and asked for time. Instead, eviction proceedings were filed. 2 months later, she was dead after spending her final days in a shelter. Judge Judy read aloud from the letter, her voice steady but strained. Sarah described being approached in the hospital, asked about money she owed. She wrote of her fear, her exhaustion, and her belief that Patricia targeted vulnerable veterans. She urged her father not to give up, to expose the truth. When Judge Judy finished, the courtroom was silent. For the first time in decades, her eyes filled with tears. She steadied herself before addressing Patricia. "You went to a hospital," she said quietly, "to demand payment from a dying woman." Patricia offered a weak denial, but there was no explanation that could erase what had been revealed. After a recess, Judge Judy returned with detailed financial records. What she uncovered transformed the case entirely. Patricia's company had collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage claims from veteran tenants. The repair work was consistently billed at inflated rates, far above market value. The contractor responsible. Patricia's own brother, the scheme became clear. Veterans were lured in with promises of affordable housing. Minor issues were documented and exaggerated. Inflated repair bills were issued. When tenants couldn't pay, they were evicted, their deposits kept, their credit ruined. It was systematic, calculated, and devastating. James himself had been deliberately targeted, his connection to Sarah known from the beginning. Another veteran, Michael Torres, stepped forward to testify. His experience mirrored the same pattern. False charges, eviction, homelessness. Judge Judy's conclusion was swift and unequivocal. "This is not a simple landlord-tenant dispute," she declared. "This is fraud. This is exploitation." Her ruling followed. James Mitchell owed nothing. Instead, Patricia Brennan was ordered to pay him $48,500, covering false claims, emotional damages, and punitive penalties. Further orders followed. The eviction record expunged, a full audit of Patricia's business, restitution for victims, an immediate referral for criminal investigation. The courtroom erupted. Patricia's composure collapsed as state investigators stepped forward. James stood quietly, overwhelmed. Veterans in the courtroom gathered around him, offering support. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone. In the months that followed, the case expanded into a full criminal prosecution. More victims came forward. Financial records exposed the depth of the fraud, hundreds of thousands collected under false pretenses. Patricia and her brother were ultimately convicted. Prison sentences were handed down. Restitution was ordered. For James, the outcome wasn't about victory. It was about his daughter. Sarah's letter, now preserved and carried with him always, had done exactly what she intended. It had protected him. It had exposed the truth. And it had saved others. With support from fellow veterans, James rebuilt his life. He found stable housing, recovered owed benefits, and became part of a growing community formed in Sarah's name. They called themselves Sarah's Warriors. What began as one letter became something far greater, a movement to protect vulnerable veterans from exploitation. James now speaks regularly, sharing his story, warning others, and honoring his daughter's courage. Her words, written in her final days, continue to echo far beyond that courtroom. A single letter, a single truth, and a moment where even the strongest judge could not hold back tears, because sometimes justice begins with the courage to be heard.